This case is as slippery as a wet bathtub. You cannot get a conviction just because a guy's, a jerk, a bad person, a horrible person, a cheater, a bad dad, a very bad actor. Yeah, there's plenty of suspicious circumstances surrounding Michelle MacNeill's death. But at the end of the day, you've got 3 prosecution forensic experts who do not conclusively say it was homicide. The science of this case is definitely on the defense side. Now, sure, they're saying he's acting like a very bad actor, just like they convicted Casey Anthony of lying. Are they going to convict this doctor of being a jerk and nothing more? And I'll throw it to Lisa Lockwood, investigator and author of Undercover Angel.
So let's listen to the 911 call. What was one of the things that he said to the dispatcher? She's underwater. She's underwater. 2 different times she's underwater. When police had arrived on the scene and another woman arrived, the neighbor arrived to say, I'm going to help her get her out of the bathtub. There was no water in there at that point when she was there. It was a woman hunched over in the bathtub. So how does that even make sense? The initial call, she's underwater, she's underwater. Right away, that story's sketchy.
I agree with you. And he also contradicts himself on the 911 call. He says she's in the tub underwater, and then the dispatcher says, can somebody do CPR? And he's like, I'm doing it that loud. Well, you can't do CPR if somebody is underwater in a tub. Doing. Let's go out to the phone lines. Carol, Indiana, your question or thought. Carol, Indiana.
Hi, Jane. How are you?
Good.
I'd like to make 2 comments, if I may.
Sure.
Okay. One of them is all those pills that she was on, a lot of those I had been on. However, not all at the same time, because my situation probably would have turned out to be like her situation. Number 2, this lady, Gypsy, was ready to move in this man's house at the drop of a dime. So disrespectful to go to a funeral. If I were on the juror, I would pray that I could convince the rest of my fellow jurors to vote him guilty for first-degree murder. And say hi to your animals and everybody. Bye-bye.
They can do that. The question is, we have watched so many of these high-profile cases where everybody, it sort of feeds on itself, and they say that, oh, the guy's guilty, they have a great case, and then the person is acquitted. We saw it. Casey Anthony's the most famous example. I think the reason why Jodi Arias was convicted is that prosecutor Juan Martinez outlined down to the second exactly how she killed Travis Alexander. And that's what this prosecutor needs to do, is say, how exactly did he, in your opinion, drag her to the tub, get her underneath the water? I want to be able to visualize it in my mind, given that it's a circumstantial case. Now, jurors have already heard the testimony that Dr. MacNeill pressured his wife into getting a facelift she didn't want, even telling the surgeon who did the procedure, please prescribe my wife more painkillers and sedatives than you normally would. But when cops arrived as his wife lay motionless in the tub, he cried out the exact opposite. Listen.
Cursing her for having the surgery. Why did you do this surgery? I told her not to do it.
He was blurting out things like why did you have to have the surgery? Why are you on so many medications?
Excuse my language. He referred to why did you have to have this surgery?
Clearly, criminal defense attorney Adam Thompson, none of these witnesses buy this guy's act, and they all thought he was acting. Again, is there something more that the prosecution can do with that, as opposed to, okay, it's a passive argument, if you know what I mean, as opposed to, here's what he did do.
It is. You always rather have direct evidence than circumstantial evidence. Like you said in the opening, listen, there's a lot of circumstantial evidence. He had a mistress waiting in the wings, pushing his wife to get a facelift, asking for extra medications, then, taking her home, and she's loaded up with a cocktail of drugs and found in the bathtub. I mean, you could go on and on. Did he really give CPR or not? Was he faking? But, the bottom line is this. They ultimately have to prove that she was killed. It stops with an autopsy report, and all the autopsy reports come back as not showing homicide. And I want to just bring up for a second, you mentioned why Jodi Arias was convicted. She testified in her case. And let me tell you, when a person doesn't testify and you're charged as a defendant, a jury doesn't get to see and hear from you firsthand. It's all hearsay through other witnesses. And in that case, once she got on the stand, that prosecution ripped her to shreds and exposed her. And then the jury saw really how crazy she was. That was the end of her. If she didn't testify, who knows if it would have been the same outcome as Casey Anthony.
Now, look, these are the adult daughters who went against their father and actually launched a campaign to get him charged with murder. Coming up, the prosecution's star witness, the jury will hear from the defendant's adult daughter, Alexis. She's the very one who led the charge, believing that her dad murdered her mom. Check this out.
I was helping her wash her hair, and she said, Alexis, if anything happens to me, make sure it wasn't your father. She had suspected an affair.
Did that come out of the blue, though? I mean, when I can't even imagine that conversation.
No, I mean, it was horrifying. I didn't believe it. I didn't want to believe it, but it happened. It was just a couple days later that she was murdered.
And I want to believe her. I feel sorry for that woman, and she's got a lot of courage. But the jury will not hear Alexis testify that her mom warned her if anything happened. Take a look at your dad. Lisa Lockwood, she's a great witness, but unfortunately the judge has ruled out all the most incriminating things she might possibly say.
And unfortunately, that's the case in this scenario. So what are they going to go on? They're going to go on circumstantial evidence. But even when you look at the toxicology, why did she have so much in her system? Are they going to try and say that she was trying to kill herself? Is that the scenario that they're going to try and play out because she was depressed and use the husband's testimony based on that? When you look at all the different facets coming to this, in the end, first autopsies were inconclusive to any type of foul play. That it was arrhythmia, and then it was re-looked at again. So it's really unfortunate in that scenario. But the other thing, as far as him delaying the CPR and getting her out of the bathtub, going ahead and sending the lady away. I'm going to tell you right now, if you're in an exigent circumstance, you have superhuman strength. There was nothing that prevented him from getting her out of that tub alone.
I mean, anybody can pull anybody out of a tub. I mean, maybe I couldn't pull a 400-pound man out of a tub. Even if they're stopping weight, a man could pull a petite woman out of the tub. That was nonsense. I think that's one of the best arguments against him. Heather, Connecticut, what do you got to say, Heather?
Hi, Jane. I love your show, and I love what you do. I just have a quick comment. My worry is, in line of the defense, when you go for a surgery, you have to sign a consent. Do you think that the defense has a win-win with that? Because she obviously consented to it. She had to sign a paperwork to do so. So my worry is the defense is going to look at that and ask that question. She signed the paper. She wanted the facelift. Nobody pressured her.
You know, you make a very good point, because there were some of the first witnesses, the plastic surgeon who performed the surgery, and then the doctor who did the pre-op. And they didn't sell it the way the prosecution did. They said, you know, she seemed a little ambivalent. He seemed a little excited. But it wasn't like, come here, you're going to get that surgery whether you want it or not. And there's a lot of nuances, a lot of